From day one, Des Walsh has been part of Writers at Woody Point. Today, on Writers on the Road, I'm finally heading to Des's home by the water in New Bonaventure. Every year at Writers at Woody Point, we invite authors from around the world to our small town in Newfoundland to tell their stories in our favorite place. Now, we're hitting the road to visit some of our favorites in places that are special to them. I'm Stephen Brunt, and this is Writers on the Road. Des Walsh is a poet, playwright, screenwriter, musician, and actor. In addition to his poetry, which he first published as a teenager, Des is perhaps best known for writing the groundbreaking TV miniseries The Boys of St. Vincent, and for his adaptation of Bernice Morgan's novels Random Passage and Waiting for Time. He also sings and plays the fiddle and is part of the trad powerhouse band Tickle Harbor. Des has been part of every Writers at Woody Point going back to our very first year in 2004. Des has become a friend to many of us in Woody Point, and I'm glad to count myself amongst them. I met Des at his beloved old house in New Bonaventure, Trinity Bay, a place that feels like it is one with the rocky hills surrounding the harbor. We sat on the deck on a beautiful bright day, taking in the views and enjoying a very welcome ocean breeze. Des, thanks for inviting me here. You've invited me here for years, I got to say. Like, it's about 20 years of invitations saying, when you come to New Bonaventure? And I always make it, I don't ever want to leave. So it's nothing about you, it's about the other place. But now I'm here and it's amazing.
It's beautiful.
Tell me how a guy from town wound up here.
About 20 years ago, I guess, we were filming Random Passage just up from here. And I wrote the screenplay for that, for the TV miniseries. And we passed this house daily. And Ruth Lawrence, who bought the house, we bought it together, who is an actor and filmmaker, and she was in Random Passage. She found out the house was for sale. So we checked into it, and then we just went ahead and bought it. And that was 20 years ago.
Wow. So did you have any other connections up the bay here?
I do very, very much. We're about 17 kilometers from Trinity proper. Now Trinity Bay, and my great grandfather from Ireland ended up there and lived there in Trinity for 23 years before they moved up the bottom of the bay to what was called Tickle Harbor, now called Bellevue.
Yeah, Tickle Harbor, that rings a bell somehow.
That's where we took the name of the band.
The band.
But he arrived from Ireland, and he couldn't speak a word of English. He spoke Irish. He had to learn English when he got here. And he was 103 when he died up in the bottom of the bay. So I do have a connection here for sure. Yeah.
You're here now a lot of the year. Like, you're not a summer person. You're a half the year, more than half.
More than half, yeah.
So when you buy a place, you see it. It's beautiful. There's a connection. I don't know how you imagined you would use this or how much of your life it would be. It's become a big part of your life. What is it? Can you kind of describe what it feels like to be here? Well,
it's a great place to write if you can actually sit down and do it. There's great, solitude here. I have great friends in the area, and everyone knows to leave me alone if I'm actually working. But I'd much prefer to be out fishing than I would be working. So it's fantastic like that. As you can see the landscape, it's just it's very hard to get messed up. So like all you got to do is just come out and sit down and look out at that water, and it kind of clears everything. And I just find it a very inspiring place to work out of, and extraordinary people here.
That idea of a writing space, I've actually always had a hard time writing in a place that was, isolated and quiet, like the kind of the writer's tower or something. I couldn't do it. I'm so used to writing with noise and kids, and I almost need it now. But tell me what makes a good writing space for you.
I spend a lot of time here alone, and if I have enough, like, I'm a very, very undisciplined and very lazy writer. Like, I'm not someone who gets up and has a coffee and then sits in and works from 9 till 12 and has lunch and then works. I don't work that way. But when I do, I mean, I've worked on a couple of film projects out of here, the screenplays. I'm still working towards a new collection of poems, and I'm working on it out of here. And I just find that I find the solitude that I kind of embrace it, probably more than I should, but it works for me. And I just find even on cold days, I got a beautiful wood stove in there, and just the cracking of that wood stove and the heat from that, and I can sit there with a pen and paper, and I normally longhand everything anyway before I transfer it, and I just find it remarkably comforting. And there's this, a real. It's better than prescription drugs for me. It works better, so I love it.
Tell me a little bit about kind of the origin story of you as a writer. Like what drove you to writing in the first place?
I remember just as a teenager being introduced to a couple of like Emily Dickinson, Yeats, Dylan Thomas. I remember this line I was suffering through the classic teenage unrequited love, and this poem by Yeats, Broken Dreams, and the first two lines were, "There is gray in your hair, young men no longer suddenly catch their breath when you are passing." I said, yes, that's how I'll get you. And I just started writing. I published very early, the first publications, like I was 17, 18 years old. I've always wanted to win the lottery, to put a notice out, like in the Globe and Mail or the National Paper. If anybody has a copy of those books, I'll gladly pay, $5,000 each to get them back, just so I could destroy them. So and then, I would think really the first time I really felt comfortable was a collection that I published in 1980 with Breakwater Books called Seasonal Bravery. And I think then I started to develop a voice that I was probably a little more comfortable with than I certainly was before. But it was certainly poems that drove me into it. And then I started getting involved with I did some radio plays for CBC. And then I moved into theater, and then into film and TV.
Okay, so you're a published poet as a teenager, which is quite, this is quite something. There's not a well-worn career path as a poet, though. Like saying I'm going to be a poet.
No,
exactly. So what did you say? Okay, when you kind of say define yourself and say, this is what I am. I'm a writer. Where do you go from there?
Well, I mean, it's pretty classic, like most people. I mean, I worked in service stations. I pumped gas, and I did all that stuff. But then I moved into getting some editorial work, and I sort of moved into that. And I was an editor with a little publication out of the Arts Council in St. John's called Arts Information that we published monthly. And then I ended up with the Department of Mines and Energy, Geology, with the provincial government. And I remember going in for the interview, and they asked me if I had, I asked them, and that was when you'd have to do, like, if you had a photograph, you had to reduce it with a reduction wheel, to get, and you had to do it in flats. There was no computer printouts. But anyway, they asked me if I knew about the Central Mineral Belt. I said, no, not a clue. But I said, I can certainly spell it. And I ended up getting that job. And I worked like through the winter months for years with them.
How did you, so the moving into the world of screenplays, adaptation, theater, was that a natural progression?
The theater I slid into a bit, but with the film I've done some acting a little, and I did a project with John Smith and Sam Gannet from the National Film Board called Welcome to Canada, which was to deal with the Tamil refugees arriving in Newfoundland. And I played an RCMP officer, and it was a great experience, and I got to know them. And I ended up going to Montreal on a book tour with I think it was Love and Savagery, my collection. and I was reading at a festival in Montreal, and I went to John's for supper, and he said, Des, we're doing a project. Oh, really? He said, yeah, we're going to work on the story of Mount Cashel. I said, whoa, He said, yeah, and we need someone to help with it. I said, oh no, I'd be absolutely happy to do some research. And I said, no, we want you to write it with us. I said, Jesus, John, I've never written for TV. No, you can do it. You can. Anyway, like my long story short, I signed up. And the irony of it is that there were so many legal things involved with this that we still had a working title of The Voice of Mount Cashel, right? And we said, that's got to change.
Yeah.
And how it got the name was I was living on Morris Avenue in St. John's, and my brother Vince walked in the door. And that's how it became The Boys of St. Vincent.
So early days for you in the screenwriting world, do you learn to be a screenwriter while screenwriting? It sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all just going by the falling off the edge of your chair, trying to. But it was interesting. All of them were different. And I remember Random Passage when I adapted Bernice Morgan's. That was a big undertaking. And, it's such an extraordinary book to start with.
Yeah.
But I remember we had a story editor. I don't know what it was like episode 6, because there was 8 episodes. And she read the version I had of, and she said, Des, I love it. It's great. It's fabulous. But Henry. I said, what about Henry? Des, you killed him in episode 2. Oh, glad somebody's reading this.
Continuity.
Yeah. And then I did Love and Savagery, which was sort of based on an experience I had on a trip I had to Ireland.
Yes.
But I worked with the same director 3 times, so he completely ruined me.
What was it? So the first one, Boys of St. Vincent, it kind of changes things for you, doesn't it? Like it's a public facing thing. You can be the most well-known poet in Canada and still pretty private. But that won a ton of awards.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. I think it was the highest rated TV miniseries in Canada at the time, and it did. It won won Gemini's. It won the Peabody in the States, Umir Fiction Award in France. So it did do extremely well for in terms of people getting to see it.
Did anybody say, Des, you should be in Hollywood writing screenplays or anything like that?
Well, it's interesting. I won't mention his name, but I did have an agent. I thought and he was really encouraging me to move to Toronto, where he'd guarantee me a minimum of 6 figures now. And I said, not doing it. I'm serious, Des. He said, 6 figures. I said, I don't care. I'm not leaving. So if you can get me work here from Newfoundland, fine. But I'm not shifting.
Wayne Johnson famously said that he couldn't write about Newfoundland while in Newfoundland, right? He had to be somewhere else.
Sure.
He had to see it from a distance, right? Yeah. A lot of people have been back and forth, not just in the arts, but I know musicians who've done that, where they went to Toronto and then they came back and they went, writers, same thing, or took a job at a university or something like that. But you've never left here, have you?
No, and it's like to quote the great lines of Leonard Cohen. I love it. He said, each man has a way to betray the revolution, and this is mine. No, I've never lived anywhere else. I've been here all my life. The longest I was ever away from here was I spent some time in Ireland on different trips, just journeys on my own, and with the wee one over was Random Passage.
Yeah.
And that's the longest I've ever lived anywhere else. I've been here all my life.
Well, so can you kind of describe what that, why?
It's a bit, again, like I keep quoting all this stuff. Like Robert Burns, said, I was bred to the plow. And there's something, I don't know, it's genetic. There's something about the landscape. There's something about the water. And again, I love all of Newfoundland. And I've been to Labrador lots of times. But I'm a coastal person. I need to be by the ocean. I wouldn't be able to live in central part of, And I keep saying to people when I even go out to your part of the country, to Woody Point, I'd say to people, look, I'm from the East Coast, and like we never trust a tree that we can't see over the top of. I love being here. I love what it does for me. I love what it does for me mentally. I love what it does for me even physically. It's very rewarding and very satisfying to be here. So no, I wouldn't be able to be anywhere else.
So we got you here in this spot. Could you read something for us here?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just going to read a short poem.
Well, you don't write long poems.
I don't know how to do it. And here's the beauty about age. A lot of times if I don't have first line titles, I just use the date. And this is Saturday, September 4th, 2:46 a.m. This is not to say birds aren't singing in some love-worn meadow, or that planets aren't blinking for those that want to see them. This is not to say that rain isn't soothing some sun-drenched heart, or that liquor isn't soothing the singer's broken throat. This is nothing more than what it is. A man home, or the cry of a brittle leaf, is as loud as the battle any soldier has heard. Good night, sweet dancer. A poet turns his eyes to you.
Thanks, Des.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I think that's where the title I got from the book. The Singer's Broken
Throat is such a beautiful line. Look, thanks for doing this.
My pleasure.
Thanks for hosting this, and when with this being officially recorded, thanks for 20 years.
Oh God.
No, it's meant. I can't tell you how much it's meant to have you.
I keep saying that's it.
No, I know. I know. I give you the out. Every year I ask. I don't demand.
It's such a great festival. And it's always such an honor to be there and be part of it. I just love it.
Well, you're saying yes before it existed is one of the things that made it what it is. Thanks, Des. We'll see you soon.
Perfect. Thanks very much.